Well, hey, good morning, church. I loved how robust that time was that you guys just had. A lot of chatter, a lot of chatting, a lot of God-ordained conversations. And I hope you figured out what he's doing in that. My name's Josh. I'm one of the pastors on staff. I'm pumped to get to be back up here to share God's word. Also, I think what we're seeing and what we're feeling is just a zoomed-in microcosm of what happens every week. Every week, there are people who come in this room and they're carrying something heavy. Every week, there are people who come in this room seeking peace, seeking reprieve, seeking solace, seeking rest. Every week, there's people who come in here and they've just had the best week ever. And there's high highs and great joy and lots of things are going right. And in this room right now, we've got people on both ends of that spectrum. And in this room right now, God is going to encourage us and he's going to convict us, not because of me, but because of our time studying what he has for us. So in this week where we saw and remembered really hard things, where we experienced different stages of grief over different things, I think it is so cool that God in his grace would allow us to come in to hear what he has for us today. So we're going to jump in. We're going to continue our sermon series called Radical with arguably one of the least radical teachings that Jesus has, and we'll tell you why as we get into Matthew chapter 5. And before we get there, I need to tell you something that's true about me. And some of you guys know this about me. Some of you guys know this so well about me that you don't like me very much. And that is that I have the worst reputation when it comes to time management, when it comes to tracking time. There are so many times where my wife will text me, say, hey, when are you going to be home? Because it's like the end of the workday. And I'll say, 30 minutes. And she says, are you sure? And some of you guys know that that question alone is unnecessary, right? Are you sure? I'm sure. And then you cue to the narrator's voice, and I was not sure, and I was not home in 30 minutes because I have a terrible relationship with keeping time. So much so that my wife knows when I say 30 minutes, it could be anywhere between 20 and 90 minutes before I am in my 30-minute window. So much so that when my family will, hey, when are you coming over? We're doing Thanksgiving dinner at 3. People are coming over around 1. When are you coming over? I'll say 1:30, and they'll say, great, we'll see you at 2:30, and it'll be great. Because I'm a known liar when it comes to time. Not because I disrespect people, just because I don't know how clocks work, apparently. I don't understand how long an actual minute is. It's just difficult for me. We have a meeting with our arts team every Monday at 2, and when I get in there around 2, they know we're starting at like 2:08, 2:10. It's spilling into everything about my life to where when I say a time, I should not be trusted. So don't take me at my word. But we're going to dive in to see what does this have to do with what Jesus is saying. And we'll be done in 30 minutes, I promise. And now that you all know that about me, there are people in this room who are like, I like him. I get him. I'm not alone. And there's people in this room who are on their way out. I don't respect him. I don't like him. We will definitely not be friends. And I hope I can redeem that. I am a work in progress. We are working on that as a people together, I think. And when we get in here to Matthew 5, we're going to be in verse 33 through 37 today. We're going to see a little bit of how my plight, my weakness is just one version of this global weakness because people go back on their word all their time. People lack integrity in so many things. I don't have time in here, because I've got the 30 minutes, remember, to cover the political promises that have not been fulfilled. They've been unmet. No new taxes. I can't tell you about the number of volunteers who have said, yes, I'll be there, and then all of a sudden they get the flu 5 minutes before the event. I forgot to do finger quotes, the flu, and they've backed out. The number of times people have said, like, I'm in, I'm going to, I promise, I will, I'm positive this time, I mean it this time, and if you have to say, I really mean it, or I promise, or this time, there's a good chance that you've had an integrity problem when it comes to commitments, when it comes to your word. There are Sunday Christians who are Christians on Sunday. And again, I'm supposed to be doing air quotes when I say Christians because we come into church and we get all nice and we're just whitewashed tombs because we leave here and we become a completely different person when it comes to interacting with someone in food service, when it comes to leaving a tip for someone who served us, when it comes to interacting with people who drive on 75 and they shouldn't be there, but they're there and we're interacting with them. We are all known for being one thing and then becoming another thing in so many ways. And in the news recently, you've seen pastors on the news. And they've been on the news for the wrong reasons. Men leading churches. Men who stand on a stage and preach from God's word and say so many things, but their life is living completely different than everything they've said. Pastors who aren't by any means more holy, more perfect, better than anyone who's not a pastor, but who live a life that should be reflective of what they're teaching because integrity matters. They've been on the news because they lack integrity completely. And we spent a big chunk of the spring reminding you, like, if we say anything on this stage that doesn't align with who we are and what you see outside of this room, tell the elders, tell us. It has to be stopped. Paul warned Timothy, like, nib it in the bud right away. It is not okay. There's an integrity problem. In this country, there was a survey done, a 2025 Barna survey. 2025 is the year we're in. So they did this survey this year. They had results. And it says the Arizona Christian University found that 1/3 of U.S. adults believe lying to protect their personal interests is morally acceptable. And this trend extends to self-identified Christians. So this indicates a broad decline in moral clarity, as many Christians hold unbiblical views and are influenced more by the culture than their faith. These are the Sunday Christians. These are the people who lie to protect themselves. It's just a little white lie. I said that, but I did it to protect this person. I said 30 minutes because I know that's what I wanted you to hear, and so that you'd be happy with me, but I know I'm trying to protect myself. And we have a problem, not just as Christians, but as people, with half-truths, little white lies, saying things we don't mean, or doing things that go against what we have said. I want to paint a picture for you of you're going to Chipotle, and you're ordering your burrito bowl, because you're doing a low carb option, high protein like I am. And you're gonna get double chicken, obviously, like I am. You get to the counter to pay, and they have not heard that you got double chicken. Are you the type of person that's like, this is gonna be great. I'm gonna get away with it. I'm not gonna pay the $3 for double chicken. Or are you gonna be the type of person that says, hey, there's double chicken in that bowl? I have a friend in this church who told me that he is always sure to say, like, hey, there's double chicken in there. And when he told me that, I thought, you're crazy. And that was me putting my foot all the way inside my mouth. Like, you're crazy to have that much integrity to represent Jesus in how you interact with people outside of church. And the conviction just twists. In everything I do and say, is it representative of the God that I serve and the God that has saved me? So let's open our Bibles to Matthew 5, and all of this that we're going through comes from Matthew 5. It's stemming from verse 17, and then Jesus is addressing different chunks of things to correct in the law in the greatest sermon ever told. And he's saying several times, you've heard it said, you've heard it said, you've heard it said. So you've heard the law, but you've seen this. You've heard this, but you've seen this. And he tells you in Matthew 5:17, I haven't come to abolish the law. I didn't come so that I could just get rid of the law and everything would be okay. I came to fulfill the law. And for you, in verse 20, he says, I tell you, unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and the Pharisees, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. So he's looking at a group of people who see the scribes and the Pharisees as like top tier. They're doing everything right. And you just said my righteousness has to exceed them combined? Impossible. And Jesus is saying, yes, if you're living by that letter of the law, you have to exceed their righteousness. It's impossible. He said it is impossible, but we're not just looking at the letter of the law. Do not murder. Do not commit adultery. The last couple of weeks we've looked at murder. Jesus is actually saying, you've heard it said, do not murder, but how many of you in your heart have held and harbored resentment and murdered in your heart? He said, you've heard it said, do not commit adultery, but how many in your heart have longed and lusted? If you look lustfully upon a woman, you have committed adultery in your heart. And today, he's going to do the same thing. He's exposing the heart of the law, as we'll see. He's exposing the heart of the law, the intention of the law when it comes to oaths, and the application of the law when it comes to oaths. So Jesus is exposing the heart of the law, actually showing them beyond the letter of the law, what I actually mean by this, what you should actually be hearing. So let's jump in and read the 4 verses we've got today. Again, you have heard that it was said to those of old, you shall not swear falsely, but shall perform to the Lord what you have sworn. I say to you, do not take an oath at all, either by heaven, for it is the throne of God, or by the earth, for it is his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it's the city of the great king. And do not take an oath by your head, for you cannot make one hair white or black. Let what you say simply be yes or no. Anything more than this comes from evil. So we've got the intention of the law. He's correcting the heart of the law. You've heard it said. What you have heard it said, he's referring back to the Old Testament, the law, the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible specifically. In Exodus 20, you've heard it said that you shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. That's the 3rd commandment. They had heard that said. You've also heard it said, the 9th commandment, you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. This isn't really radical. No one in here would disagree. Like, okay, don't swear on God's name and don't lie to your neighbor. That sounds like really core, fundamental, the same thing we're teaching to our 3-year-olds, our 6-year-olds, our high schoolers, our coworkers. But if we have to keep teaching it, keep reminding it, maybe it's a little more radical than we think. But this is more than just a kindergarten lesson. When I read this, when I look at like, okay, this is the chunk that I get to teach on, okay, well, obviously, don't tell lies, everyone. Let's get better at that. Have a great week of worship. Like, we can do this. Let's white knuckle it. But it's more than white knuckling it and trying harder not to lie. Martin Lloyd-Jones wrote a commentary on this, and he's got a quote that's kind of long, but it tells us exactly why this matters. Everything a Christian does is most important because of what he is and because of his effect upon others. We must believe that if everybody in this world today were Christian, then most of our major problems would simply vanish out of sight. There'd be no need to fear war and such horrors. The question is then, how are people to become Christian? One of the ways is that they observe Christian people, and that is perhaps one of the most potent means of evangelism at the present time. We are all being watched, and therefore everything we do is of tremendous importance. Everything we do is important because of who we are. Not like, look at me, look at who I am, but because of who we are as image bearers of God in heaven, because of who we are as we reflect his character. And when we read this, we would say, I don't know if Christians are doing so hot at modeling God's character in who we are. And this is all stemming from what Jesus had just said. But remember, you are a city on a hill. You are a light to shine, so therefore let your light so shine before others that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. Remember, that is who you are at your core. This whole sermon started with, blessed are you, blessed are you, blessed are you, reminding you of what actually matters. And because that is who you are, you're to be shining. No one is going to highlight the liar and say, yeah, I want to follow him. I want to be like him. That's what I want to base all of this off of. Because lies have rarely helped any one of us in this room. But instead, when we model well what it looks like to be a person who has been saved from sin and redeemed from chains and given a new heart, a new hope, a new life, a new future, when we model that well, people see that and they say, what's different about them? But instead, it's a shock to unbelievers. When they meet a Christian who actually models Christ, they're like, whoa, this is wild. I've met so many Christians before, but you're the first one who actually cared. You're the first one who actually prayed when they said they were going to pray. You're the first one who actually did something to help. And that just shatters my heart that there are so many people seeing finger quote Christians who aren't doing the work of Christ. So when they encounter hopefully one of us and we're doing something to humbly show them our King, they're floored. And that's when we have an opportunity. The most potent evangelism we have today is to live a life that follows Jesus, to live in a way that shows people that I was a sinner, I am a sinner, but that's not how Jesus sees me because of the work that he's done on the cross to save me. And because of the work he's done on the cross to save me, it is no longer I who live, but it's Christ who lives in me. And the death that he died once, he died for all, so I can walk in freedom. And this is good news. But are we presenting our lives as good news? Because he's pointing out, like, hey, people of the kingdom of God, a Christian, what you're doing and what you're saying should align. The phrase that I learned this week is the tongue in your shoe matching the tongue in your mouth. Is what you say and what you do in alignment? Or are you two-faced? Are you back to being that whitewashed tomb, very fancy on the outside, but full of bones on the inside? So as we look at like Jewish law from the Torah, it's important that we understand why Jesus is correcting this teaching. Because he's correcting the Pharisees, the experts in the Jewish law, and helping them see more clearly. So I consulted our resident rabbi. His name is Matt Weidman, and he's an elder on our team here. He leads so well, and he speaks Hebrew or he raps, and then when he gets around it, he talks in normal English to us when we need help. But he knows so much, and so he's been helping me, texting me books and teaching me the context in the Torah and the rabbinical tradition. So why is Jesus saying, like, hey, you've heard the law, you know the law, you've seen the books, but I'm telling you this. In the Torah, which is our first 5 books of the Bible, oaths, making an oath, swearing, is permitted. Leviticus 19:12 says, you shall not swear falsely against my name, profaning the name of the God. But in Numbers 30, it says, if a man vows a vow to the Lord, he shall not break his word, which is exactly what Jesus is saying. The Mishnah, which is a big Jewish book. It's the first written document of the oral tradition of the elders, which is what Jesus is coming to correct and to fix. The Halakha. And then the Talmud is the primary source where they go into great detail about the types of oaths. There's binding oaths, and then there's non-binding oaths. That's an oxymoron. There's intentional oaths, and there's unintentional oaths. And there's even oaths that are made by implication, like, oh, you implied an oath. And so they allowed for layers of oaths where you could swear on different things. Like, I'm going to swear on heaven because I'm not invoking the name of God. I'm going to swear on the temple or on Jerusalem because then I'm not swearing on God's name. I'm not profaning it. So by the letter of the law, I am honoring God. I've just sworn on the temple. So they found these legalistic loopholes that impacted their integrity behind the words that they were getting off on a technicality. I said I'd be home in 30 minutes, but I didn't say which 30 minutes. Right? I haven't done anything wrong. Why are you mad? Why is dinner cold? Why is everyone upset? Technically, I didn't lie, but Pharisees would do this. And Jesus said, don't swear on the temple because that's the dwelling place of God. Don't swear on gold because that belongs to God. Don't swear on the sacrifice because it's meaningless unless it's made to God. Don't swear on Jerusalem because that's God's city. Don't swear on anything on the earth because that's his footstool. None of these things can be separated from God. Yet they would make these vows. One example of a vow. A husband can make a vow to derive no benefit from his wife because she is ugly, But then, if he were to discover that she has a hidden beautiful mole or a blemish, rabbis debated whether such a specific and absurdly negative vow could be annulled based on the new contradictory information. I vowed I would not make love to my wife because she's ugly. But what about that mole? Can I go back on that? Hey, Rabbi, I made this vow, but now there's new information. Can I go back on that? And I would hope the rabbi was bringing very much holiness to this husband, but there's a law that they have to follow. If a man swore by a flying camel, which I guess they did because there's a law, it's not an enforceable vow because camels can't fly. It's the same thing as if I were to say, I swear by the Cowboys Super Bowl championship this year. It's like it's an unenforceable vow. To all you doubters in the room, I think that's a real vow. All because all these little loopholes, 1,200 pages in the Mishnah and more in the Talmud, all these loopholes just so they could get away with not actually breaking the 10 Commandments. It's just wild. So why? Why? The intention of the law. Jesus explaining that none of these things are yours. Nothing is yours, so how could you swear upon it? You can't even make one hair white or one hair black. You have no authority to place a promise on these things because they belong to God. The promises that God can make, God can uphold, but we cannot make those. I can take a box of color and I can get rid of these silver titanium tips that I've got here, and I can make sure this side of my beard matches this side of my beard, but I'm not actually making those silver titanium hairs, the few ones that I have, I'm not making them black. I'm coloring them, but you give it a week, you give it a few extra hours with my kids who I love, and it's going to come back white. Silver, titanium, salt and pepper. If I promise, and this just happened, if I promise to my son's football team, I'm coaching their flag football team, I said, hey, if you can do this coach's challenge, this perfect shot challenge, I'll bring popsicles to the game. If they do the challenge and I show up to the game without popsicles, they're going to be devastated, they're going to revolt, and they're going to think I'm a liar. So next time I say, hey, coach's challenge, let's line up, let's do this again, they're going to say, I'm not even going to try. You're not bringing popsicles. You're not a man of your word. If my son, who's 7, on the team says, hey guys, my dad's bringing ice cream if we do well in practice, and then I don't bring ice cream, they're not going to be mad at Axel, they're going to be mad at the coach, because again, I didn't bring ice cream. So when someone's swearing on my name, it still causes me to lack integrity, and it poorly represents me. My word is reflective of who I am, and who I am is reflective of who I've made to be. The character of God himself. A believer's word should be trustworthy and true. A Christian should not have to add, I promise, I mean it this time. A Christian should not have to say like, no, seriously. We should just let our yes be yes and our no be no. The letter of the law matters, but it wasn't written for that sake. The letter of the law was not written to give rigid boundaries. It was to present the character of God through God's people to God's people so other people might see that they can be saved as well. But when we relax, we're not swearing by God, we're swearing by the temple. I didn't say which game I'd bring popsicles to. When we're stepping it back and backpedaling, what we're doing is we're misrepresenting who we are. We're misrepresenting who God is. So the intention of the law should remind us to represent God rightly in the way you treat his name, and represent God rightly in the way that you represent his character. And there are people in here who are wired to poke holes in this. And I get that. I respect that. They're thinking, well, should I not make any oaths? Jesus said, don't make any oaths. Should I not let my kids do the Pledge of Allegiance? Should they not stand and do this? Should I not take my Hippocratic oath and just, however I want to treat patients? Or the lie that all of you have told, where you clicked, yes, I've read terms and conditions, and I agree. Should I not do that? Is that misrepresentation? Should Christians read the entire terms and conditions? And now we're getting back into the letter of the law. Instead, like the heart of the law, terms and conditions, like, yeah, sure, I agree. And then they come back to like, hey, you agreed to let us have all your pictures. Like, shoot, you're right. I should not have done that. My bad. Or am I going to sue to cause some big deal so Christians see, the other people can see, oh, Christians don't read their terms and conditions. It's not about the oaths as much as it is about the integrity with which we model, the heart with which we live. So say your Hippocratic oath. Pledge to protect and serve, those of you who protect and serve. Do what you need to do so long as you are representing God's character in the oaths that you're making here on earth. But then we get to the application of the law, where Jesus says, don't swear at all. He's trying to protect us. It's like, no, don't make promises. Don't write checks with your mouth that you cannot cash with your actions. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. This core teaching is to let you have a simple affirmation or denial and let that be enough. It's all you need to know. Peter, the apostle, one of Jesus' most brazen, outspoken followers, swore that he would never leave Jesus. I'll die before I deny you, Jesus. And then during Jesus' trial, Peter said, I swear to you, I do not know this man. Matthew 26:74. Then he began to invoke a curse on himself and to swear, I do not know the man. And immediately the rooster crowed, and Peter remembered the saying of Jesus, before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times. And he went out and he wept bitterly. Your character matters a whole lot more. So your yes and your no matter a ton. Peter's a great example. He spoke a big game. He made a big promise that he then didn't fulfill, which I encourage you to go read John 21, because Jesus himself was the one who could restore that broken promise. Jesus himself is the one who could make right what we make wrong, and it's only Jesus who can do that. I've been on staff here for, I think we're almost done counting months. We'll call it 19 months, maybe 20. And early on, my time in staff, someone came up to me because they couldn't come to the meeting that they said they would be at. And instead of just saying, I can't be there, I'm sorry, something came up, they said, hello, Josh, how are you? Listen, I need to ask for your forgiveness. I need to ask for my time back. I made a commitment to be in this meeting with you, and now I'm unable to fill that commitment. So, A, can I have my time back? And will you forgive me for going back on my word? And I was like, whoa, you're kind of making this a big deal. It's just a planning meeting. It's totally cool. I get it. But what they were doing right there is modeling me the utmost integrity. They were showing me value, and they were showing me that when I make a commitment, I will follow through. And from that day, that integrity has continued to compound. And my expectation is like, whoa, there are people in this world, there are people on this staff who care so much about what they say that even missing a little old meeting with little old me is of utmost importance to them because of their integrity. And what they say, they do. And when that doesn't match up, they know to repent humbly, apologize, and seek forgiveness. Hey, I know I said I'd be at this meeting at 9 o'clock. It's 9:05. This happened to me just 2 weeks ago. One of the guys on staff said, hey, I know I said we're meeting at 12, and I didn't get here till 12:15, and there's a lot of reasons why. I'm so sorry. Will you forgive me? Because I want to be a man of my word. And for too long, I've just thought, well, those things don't matter, because A, in the letter of the law, they don't matter to me. It's time. Time's just numbers that are made up anyway. But for him, for them, for us as Christians, these numbers are reflective of these commitments that we've made to people that model our character, and our character is representing who we serve. And that's where we can step up. Jesus has a brother named James, and James wrote this profound statement in the book of James, chapter 5, verse 12. He says, above all, brothers and sisters, do not swear either by heaven or by earth or with any oath, but let your yes mean yes and your no mean no, so that you won't fall under judgment. So from there we get 2 things. James is plagiarizing from Jesus, because that's what brothers do. But 2, he says, above all, what you say and what you do have to match up. What we're doing here, believers, is what James is saying. What they're doing here, believers, is what Josh is saying. Your yes should be yes. Your no should be no. We are known for so many things outside these walls that don't represent our Father in heaven because we don't strive with integrity to represent our Father in heaven. Anything more is from Satan, is what Jesus says. Oaths indicate a weakness of character. I need to make an oath to you to fulfill my word. But Satan thrives. Evil thrives when we lose our credibility for our lack of integrity. Satan thrives when people can beat down the bride of Christ with good authority. I don't trust churches because I don't trust pastors. I don't trust pastors because look at them. I take great pride in getting to be a pastor, in getting to serve on this staff, but when I go tell people, there's still a check in my spirit of like, do I say I work in nonprofit? Do I tell them the truth about me? Because what I say, they're going to hear what I say and bring all the baggage that other people have left for me to carry. And it's not just pastors. When hopefully you have conversations about your faith at work, are people going to be surprised? Like, you're a Christian? Interesting. Are they going to know what Christians do just by watching you? We've got to carry this opportunity, not as a weight. Because the road hasn't been paved easy for us by men. But when we walk with Jesus as a city on a hill, we can withhold with integrity our word. But when things start in our head and move to our mouth and grow in our heart and flow into who we are, all of a sudden we're not representing something. Brad shared a few weeks ago what his dad says, like, remember you're a Kirby, and what that means when you leave, you're still a Kirby, so keep doing Kirby things. And that's kind of what Jesus is saying. Like, remember, you're a kingdom of heaven Christ follower. You are set apart. You are holy. You are righteous. You are saints. Remember that and live like that because we have a great opportunity. So how are we doing with the yeses that we've said? When I said yes, after being beat down by life, and recognizing, only Jesus can do what only Jesus can do. When I said yes to walking with Jesus, are my actions reflective of someone who has said yes to walking with Jesus? Is the way that I interact with sin, like dabbling with it and playing with it and messing around with sin? Or am I someone who's walking with Jesus and making war against sin and repenting and turning away? When I said yes at the altar to marry my wife, and I made a vow before God and an oath with her, am I going to live life in a way that's honoring that? Or am I going to be like texting these people, or going to the gym and interacting with these gals, or taking my ring off when I'm at Chili's for happy hour after work? Like, how am I living a life that's reflective of the vow that I've made before God to my wife? When some of you who said yes to be a member here at CityBridge, when you signed the covenant and you checked the box that says you read and accept the terms of that covenant. I'm not going to put it on the screen, but how are we doing with that yes? When we agreed to live out these values in this body of Christ with these people by doing these things, how are we doing? What's your time look like? Who are the people you're running with? What's your giving statement look like? Are we reflecting those things in who we are and what we do? Integrity is not that radical, but its impact is the most radical thing we can see, especially in this. The application of the law, we have to live to tell the truth. Our words matter. Every word we say in a text, in an email, in a meeting, at home, in the car, every word we say is a building block of our character. Do our words build trust or do they cause doubt? Again, Jesus' brother in James 3, go read it. Your words are so important because of the damage they can do or because of the blessing they can bring. So your words matter. If we're going to live to tell the truth, we'll know that. If we're going to live to tell the truth, we're going to know that there's a battle for truth. That's not new news to us. When you say truth, what do you mean? What is the truth? Jesus says, let simply your yes be yes, no be no. Anything more comes from evil. This is a spiritual warning. When we bend the truth, when we flex the truth, when we omit something to avoid the truth, we got to be truth people. We're representing the literal truth. I am the way, the truth, the life. Jesus is the truth. Are we representing that well? Live to tell the truth, we need a new heart. And we know this. We cannot do this on our own. I can't just get better at telling the truth and all of a sudden everything is good. Our ability to be truly truthful comes from the fact that we have the power of the living God living in us when we give our lives to Jesus. And the Holy Spirit can bring truth through us, making more of Jesus, not more of us. Man, Josh has great integrity. How cool is he? It's like, no. My integrity, I'm striving, but God's work in me is what I'd hope you'd see way more than anything I can do. And the good news of Matthew 5, 17 through 20, 33 through 34 is that Jesus did fulfill the law. The grace of God allows us to tell the truth. We can strive to live by a standard that Jesus set. But when we fail, and we'll probably fail at this, but when we fail, we don't have to try and earn back God's favor. Well, let me tell the truth 3 times now because I told one lie. We can go to him. Man, God, I blew it again. We confess our failure and receive his forgiveness. Can we present that same forgiveness out to the world? Like, hey, I should tell you, in that meeting, I said this, and that was a lie. When I text you on my way, and I still wasn't even dressed yet, I should tell you that was a lie, and I'm sorry. That's why it took me 45 minutes to make a 10-minute drive. Will you forgive me? I want to be a man of my word, and I would hope that you would hold me to that. And that's only by the grace of God that we can present to others. So how do we respond to this? Some of you guys are probably thinking like, I'm good, I don't lie. I would say that's probably a lie. Okay? I think in Scripture it says, check yourself before you wreck yourself. There. Where are you struggling with being a person who is a truth teller, a person of truth? Some of you guys are like, okay, you got me, Pastor. At the same time, like you and I are the same. I'm found out. Maybe not with time, but I bend the truth here. I lie here. My words and my actions don't line up with what Jesus would want for me very well. I'm going to continue to blow it, and I would say continue to lean in to Jesus. Confess. Get around people who can hold you accountable to the truth. And it's sad when you have to turn to a grown man and say, are you telling the truth right now? And it's humbling to have someone ask you, are you telling the truth right now? Because you just asked that same question to your 5-year-old. But at the same time, the truth will set you free. Let people, by the power of God, speak into your life so that we can do a better job representing the truth. This is a big deal. And I tell you it's a big deal because telling the truth is a matter of life and death. Because one day we're all going to face judgment, and the way we lived our lives is going to represent the truth that we believed in. And I feel it more and more every day. The way I live my life is going to give someone the opportunity to believe in the truth I believe in. Even if I don't say a thing, I should say a thing, but even if I don't say a thing, people are going to see Jesus in me because of my job title on my LinkedIn, because of what they see on a business card. They're going to see Jesus in me, and are they going to turn to him and be accepted, or are they going to run from him and be judged? And that's the power that we have in our words. That's the power we have in our oaths. This is a big deal. We represent God, so live to tell the truth.